In the absence of President Zellner, I will call the village board meeting of April 18th to order. Roll call. Gary Hirschberg, Sam Kaufman.
Here.
Aaron Moran.
Here.
Chris Zellner. Bill Ranum.
Here.
Bill Willems.
Here.
Nyla Fry.
Here.
I would look for a motion to appoint a chair for the meeting.
Move, we appoint Dr. Franum.
I second it.
Yeah, it didn't take long, did it? You have the sheets thing or not? Your copy?
The agenda?
Yeah, your copy. I'm sorry.
No problem.
I did read it though. Sorry, thanks.
So there is a motion on the table, though. So call for.
Oh, call the vote for
Aye.
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 against.
We agreed this was your smart
This is
song.
it, this is
Yep.
it. So I guess confirmation of open meeting compliance.
I can confirm that the draft agenda was published in the Waunakee Tribune on April 8th. I can confirm that the final agenda was posted in all three posting locations on April 13th and April 14th, and the final agenda and packet were made available online on the 13th of April.
Sounds good. And thank you. Consent agenda, is there anything that anybody wants to pull from the consent agenda?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes. Public comment, has anybody got anything on there for?
We do have one. Lauren Lane at 1012 Millie's Way.
I'm back again. I came 2 weeks ago. I'm the no mo May person. You're going to vote on it tonight. So just wanted to give you a quick refresher and recap about why this is such a really important thing that I hope the village will encourage residents to do. Brief history. This idea came to us from the United Kingdom. A professor at Lawrence University heard about this idea from an environmentalist in the United Kingdom. And the idea, again, is just very simple. It's a voluntary program where you encourage residents to do nothing in the month of May with your lawn. So simply just don't mow it. The reason is our pollinators are in crisis. Pollinators, birds, bats, butterflies, and bees. Bees are especially important. And we're in such crisis with them that the United Nations has declared it a global threat to our food security. About 1 out of every 3 foods that you eat is pollinated. And the reason that our pollinators are in crisis, it's a lot of reasons. Climate change, as we hear about all the time. Habitat loss, though, is another really big issue. And if you think about your lawn, grass doesn't do much for pollinators. It's monoculture, and a lot of lawns are treated with toxic chemicals, pesticides, and herbicides, which are really toxic to our pollinators as well. So what they found out was that if you don't mow your yard in May, the dandelions come up, and sometimes clover come up, and it's a really important early food source for our pollinators before some of the flowers start blooming. And this started in the United States in the city of Appleton, and they proposed it there. And again, as I said, it was really spearheaded by a professor from Lawrence University, and they decided to do it in 2020 during the pandemic. And they had great success with it, and they studied it. So it was 2 professors at Lawrence University, and they did a study. And they were expecting maybe that it would be mildly beneficial, but the results were staggering. They compared yards, so you have the nicely mowed, perfectly manicured green lawn that we all think is so perfect, and then you had the kind of messy, shaggy lawn that another resident wasn't mowing. They found 5 times as many pollinators in the lawn that was not mowed. And that, in terms of science, is really huge. And also I mentioned, I heard a report that one endangered bee that they thought might have gone extinct showed up in Appleton during this program. So because of the success they've been having, this is spreading. Like the dandelions, it's spreading like wildfire. I think about 12 communities in Wisconsin are adopting it, including Verona, Shorewood Hills, and also, if I can get it in under my time limit, Shorewood Hills. I have a report that they reported back. They did it in 2021 to massive success, no complaints, high homeowner participation. There are signs that you can use, so you can print them out for free. Residents can print them out from the Xerces Society. The Xerces Society, they run the Bee City USA, and you can print them and put them in your yard, and it says No Mow May with the pollinators on them, so they're really colorful and pretty. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Some people, it's voluntary, so some people you could, maybe mow your front if you're so compelled, leave the back open. Or, don't do it for 2 weeks, but do it for another 2 weeks. Any bit helps.
I have to call time, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, that's okay. Thanks.
Appreciate that. This is very good. Presentations.
Bill, before you go on, do you want to ask if there's any other public
Oh,
comments tonight?
Any other public comments? Guess not.
Okay.
And we have a presentation related to Resolution on Mental Health Awareness Month. Who's that out of?
Yep, I can introduce that along with Joel Lewis here. Joel is 2 meetings in a row, there you go, representing the Create Waunakee Committee. But the committee, along with other organizations throughout the village, the school district, the Waunakee Cares Coalition, and others are promoting the month of March as Mental Health Awareness Month. And Aaron, too, representing the Create Waunakee Committee. Do either of you want to talk about the programs that you have on the docket this coming month?
I can.
Yeah, if you want to go.
All right, so like Todd said, my name is Joel Lewis. I'm a member of Create Waunakee. So really what the push is that May is Mental Health Month. And, I think the biggest thing is that when we're thinking about like what's just going on, obviously in our village and what's going on in our, in the community at large, mental health is really to the forefront. We just came out of a pandemic. People are struggling, not just kids, adults are as well. So one of the initiatives that I thought would be a great thing, with Create Waunakee, we take initiatives and we kind of run with it. And mental health is one of those things that it really means something to me. I do it with my job and also myself. I deal with mental health issues, so it really is a personal thing. So when we're talking about recognizing it here in the village, what we're going to be doing for the month of May, or what we plan on doing, is we're getting community members to participate through the month of May. We're going to advertise this, and basically we're going to have events, we're going to have music, we're going to have information, we're going to have experts who are providing, information like SSM. We're also going to have people telling their personal stories. I think really to make that connection with people with mental health, I think other people need to know or feel that other people are going through that, and it's okay not to be okay. So the other thing with Mental Health Month is, if you've seen it, there's a flag. So if you went to the wellness, what was the name of that? But when we had the wellness fair a couple weeks ago, we actually had a green flag. It has shades of green, and it has yellow on it as well. And if you really look at it, it's also curved. So I just want to read you something about what that stands if you do see that. So the goal is for that flag to become a goals symbol for supporting all mental health initiatives and for all those affected by mental illness. It is a representative of a shared identity and commitment. So this talks about the colors. Green is known as the mental health awareness color. So that you'll see some people wearing like green ribbons. Yellow is known to represent happiness and hope. The flag's different shades of color from dark green to yellow represent a both personal journey from a dark place to a happy place, as well as our collective efforts to bring the topic of mental health out of the darkness and into the light. The curved shape represents an embracing of those suffering from mental health illness and an acceptance of mental health as a community focus. So to me, just reading that, that's just like, it's basically a continuum, right? People go through phases, and mental health is that way. We have our dark times, and then obviously the goal is to be happy again, but sometimes it keeps going back and forth. So really what the thing is that I just wanted to speak about it just so people understand what's going on. We will be advertising it for the month of May, just in the Tribune and on the website, just kind of pushing it out so the community knows what's going on. And the other thing I do have to say, we also did, this isn't my other part of what I do, so we tried to get, the reason why the school is flying the flag for mental health is because we put out a declaration to have that happen. And it was accepted. It's only accepted for the month of May, but that's a step. So we're trying to collaborate with the village, with the school, with the community, so everybody's aware of what's going on. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Joel. I want to add that if you recall, during our university partnership, we also initiated a project to destigmatize mental health in our community. We did that by working with the school district to address youth and also working with the senior center to address the senior population. But I want to stand with Joel in acknowledging my own personal battle, and I think that's part of destigmatizing mental health, to call it out. I'll share that I take a daily medication called Lexapro. Treats anxiety and depression. I have for many years. My wife and I see a family therapist here in Waunakee who's terrific and helps us through the journeys of dealing with teenagers and being sane as we attempt to do that. As Joel mentioned, the reality of the percentage of adults like all of us who battle some element of depression, anxiety, mental illness is very real. And if the percentages are right, this room is filled with at least half of those who are just like me and Joel. So as is the rest of our community. So I think that's important for us to recognize, call it out, because as we seek treatment and work together, we are better and our community is better. So with that, we do have a resolution in the packet to officially recognize May as Mental Health Awareness Month. And with your approval of the resolution, we'll continue work with Joel and the Create Waunakee Committee and other organizations to promote that month.
Todd, I move we approve the resolution recognizing May as Mental Health Awareness Month,
I second it.
and that the resolution should be read by you. It's right here.
Read by who?
You.
Me.
I could read.
Oh,
Well, I just don't want, you just talked a lot.
Aaron wants to know if it's okay if she reads it.
That would even be better.
Just do something. I just
Do you want
want,
to take a action on the
Okay.
resolution
Oh, yeah.
first,
Yes.
Bill?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
can I say my comment too?
Oh.
I'm thankful Create Waunakee is coordinating the program again this year. I think it's, even if one person is able to, start a conversation with someone in the community, as a first step for them, I think it's worth it, and I think this is good, something important to me too. I share the similar sentiment of having to be more aware of my mental well-being and health sometimes. So I'll read this. Whereas President Joseph R. Biden Jr. proclaimed May as National Mental Health Awareness Month in 2021, stating a commitment to the assurance that everyone knows they are not alone, that help exists, and that we will provide mental health support needed to heal, recover, and thrive. And whereas the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, utilizes the month of May to elevate the national movement to raise awareness, fight stigma, educate, and provide support for people with mental illness and their families. And whereas the lack of awareness and associated cultural stigma around having and treating a mental health illness creates an average delay between symptom onset and treatment of 11 years, according to NAMI. And whereas the lack of treatment can lead to various effects on the person, example, chronic diseases like diabetes or cancer, substance use disorder, cardiometabolic disease, their family, unpaid care of a loved one, their community, homelessness, incarceration, emergency visits, disability funding. And whereas coping with the unique challenges presented to communities due to the COVID-19 pandemic, such as social isolation, adapting to new learning modalities, changes in routines and sleep habits impacted young people's mental health. And whereas the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction indicates that school-based mental health services can mitigate the impacts in children as well as improve academic outcomes by increasing social emotional learning opportunities. And whereas promoting May as Mental Health Awareness Month will increase awareness and prompt further education on important topics around mental health, demographic support systems, etc. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village of Waunakee recognizes the month of May as Mental Health Awareness Month to inspire awareness and discussion in our community. Adopted 18th of April, 2022.
Well done, Aaron.
Well done.
Thank you.
So we already called it, we're good?
Yep.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joel.
Appreciate it very much. And as this, next is unlisted, discuss and take action on aquatics planning process, is that Todd? Is that-
Yep, I'll join Sue and Renee to help address questions and bring you up to speed. A lot of information was spewed at you at your last meeting from our financial advisors, Ellers and Associates, who completed a financial management plan that took a very detailed look. And believe me, what you saw on the surface here in the presentation pales in comparison to the depths of the spreadsheets involved in putting that analysis together. But Ellers presented for you the impact of the two potential options for aquatics, the indoor-outdoor and then the outdoor-only, and its impact on our debt as well as our operating expenses, and then painted the picture in terms of the taxation impact as a result of those two alternatives. You also saw, based on an array of assumptions and estimates, what doing nothing also is going to do in terms of what we see ahead of us in relation to taxation. I included in your packet the presentation from that meeting. Renee and I did want to take a pause and find out, after you had heard that and spent time thinking about it, are there any questions that you have about the presentation, the information presented, or is there further analysis that you might want from us at this point to help with decision-making?
For
Anybody?
myself, I think we have enough to ponder. Next, we gotta get it out to the public, right?
Well, that's the next part of the question. Well, if you want, I'll kind of take it to the step two in terms of the question today, or what we want to share with you. And that, in terms of the other pieces of the puzzle, we've already discussed the what, outdoor or indoor-outdoor combination. We discussed the financial impact. We have that information now as best we can gather. What we don't have is where. Now, if you remember, end of May, I think May 25th may be I think that's our deadline for having language relating to a referendum question in place to the county for inclusion with the next election. We have, in our work, evaluated the potential sites, the 4 sites that we talked with you about, it's a couple months ago now, wasn't it? And I just want to be real honest that vetting the details and doing the diligence to evaluate those sites, and Tim's been helpful in this as well, is not a simple task. And we do not believe as staff will be able to have fully vetted and addressed ownership issues, wetland issues, and other planning conditions related to these sites to be able to give you the information you need to pick one with full information at hand and be ready to identify that site by May 25th. Now, I want to pause to turn to my team and ask if there's any additional background on the evaluation we've done thus far that you want to share.
No, I think you've laid it out, work continues, but there are some details that are still elusive.
Correct. So there's a missing piece to the puzzle. And I guess the question for the board tonight, the important one is, do you feel it's necessary to have that final piece in order to ask a question of any sort to the voters? Now, I do want to share, is it okay if President Zellner's out, obviously not here tonight, but he did send me an email regarding this item. Bill, is it okay if I share that?
Please.
So he says, I think we have 3 things to consider: indoor-outdoor combo, outdoor-only, or no pool at all. This is a financial decision, pure and simple, that the taxpayers will have an opportunity to weigh in on. To me, being fiscally responsible would not allow for the indoor-outdoor option. As of right now, I would support an outdoor-only option. Location. I feel we should be looking at all of our existing and potential new parks to place the pool. We would not have extra land costs this way. Understanding we may not have a location chosen prior to the referendum question, I believe it is important to state the question with the assumption that the pool will be placed in land that won't require additional expense. So one thing I want to be clear about, the financial management plan that you saw 2 weeks ago did not include any land acquisition costs in evaluating the tax impact. Finally, he says, if we indeed go the route of free land, he could potentially support both options. And by that, he means outdoor only or the indoor-outdoor combination. All this to get to the question for you that's formative for tonight, to help us as staff plan what to do next, is, are you interested in a referendum question that doesn't specifically identify a location certain? Except, as Chris says, to perhaps tell the voters that that the intention would be a no-expense solution. In other words, likely parkland or future parkland.
The two things to us would be, is this two things, then basically, we would put it on the idea of having indoor, outdoor, would be first determined, like, we agree that it's on our own properties, or a zero-cost property, is that what Chris is saying? That's by that. Like, we would only have it on a zero-cost?
Well, that's one option would be, that's an option with the question that you could design for a referendum.
Is a one question
You could
thing?
you could indicate in a referendum question, essentially, and I'll just really paraphrase, do voters support an aquatics facility of whatever type
Size.
you choose, if there's no additional land cost for the development? I mean, that's a reasonable question. I hear you whispering.
Well, you want,
Well, depending on the option, we still would have to address whether we need a second question on exceeding the levy limit.
Right.
and your question on the levy limit is going to be a statutory referendum, whereas the question, whatever question the village has regarding the pool or questions is a non-binding referendum question, which means that you have a little bit more flexibility in how you state it, although the recommendation and the practice is that you try to follow all of the rules for binding questions. So one of them being, for a binding referendum question, you cannot ask it in such a way so that a negative answer actually has you go ahead with something. And so you always want to have an affirmative answer for moving ahead and a negative answer for not doing something. That's just an example.
And if your answer, it'd be okay with us as a board to proceed with a question along these lines, our task as staff would be, at our next two meetings, to work through language versions with you for you to consider as we approach that second meeting in May.
Or we're saying that we're going to decide if it's indoor or indoor-outdoor, or outdoor or indoor-outdoor, and then put it to question. We're not asking voters, do you want indoor and outdoor, or just outdoor?
I believe in a non-binding referendum, the questions can be a little more flexible.
They can, the issue becomes essentially the more factors that you have in the question, how certain can you be of the answers? In other words, there is the potential that you would go through this process where you could have certain residents saying no to certain things, but if the question was as simple as, do you support an outdoor pool on land owned by the village at an expense not exceeding X, they may say yes. But if you start to have questions that relate to location, or you start to have questions relating to indoor versus outdoor, or both, that's where it gets more difficult to create the question in a way that's going to give you confidence that the answers that you've gotten have given you clarity on how you want to vote moving forward.
I feel like there are so many uncertainties, but it's like, would someone vote for, I only would want an indoor pool, or, like the type of pool would probably change a lot of the answers, but are we
So as a board, is it our goal today to decide whether we do an indoor, outdoor pool today? Is that the?
The more important question for us as staff from a timing perspective, knowing that we are not gonna have resolved the where answer in time to create a question, do you care to ask a question at all without that information? If that answer is no, we don't want to ask the question without site certain, well, then we will continue our work as we have been with the goal of setting the stage for a future election, just not the next one.
As a voter, I think it's very important that we know approximate cost, that we know whether it would be indoor or outdoor, because that will impact taxes. I think not having a location, as long as we're saying that it would be on property already owned by the village, isn't as important. So that's my thoughts.
Is there a possibility of two questions? Would you support option A or option B? Outdoor only or indoor outdoor? That's two questions. Would you support an outdoor pool or would you support an indoor outdoor pool? Is it possible to ask two questions, or is that silly?
I don't think it's silly.
I would agree with Todd.
It's gonna involve, impetus will be to educate completely, provide good information to the public so they can feel informed enough to offer their opinion on a referendum.
Yeah.
I'm going to disagree with the others. I do think the location is an important factor, especially given the geographic spread of the four that we looked at and just the differentiation in the different neighborhoods that there are. I mean, as a voter, my vote would pretty much depend on where it is.
Aaron, anything more?
Is the May deadline for an August election or November?
That's August, which is a good point. We could look to November as the date. I think the only issue there, and one reason we want to try to avoid that, is I think the school district is still trying to poise their process to be asking in November. That's my understanding, and I confirmed that with Randy a couple months ago. I haven't talked with him since then about it. But the worry would be to jeopardize a school district referendum by also having a village question.
So is it reasonable to survey the board for whether they would prefer one or the other, the indoor or the outdoor? I mean, would that help craft the question or not? I mean, as I see it, as the person who matters least on this thing, I mean, as far as no vote in this at all, I see it as like, hey, this is just my opinion only. It's like, hey, I think this town will need an outdoor pool at some point. It'll need it's part of the growing up. I have the cost issue in the back of my head, and I have EMS and police and the other things going on. So I would hate to have the idea of the more expensive option eliminate the more reasonable option when we present it to voters in the long run. That's my concern.
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, I think what Todd said, if the board is okay with having questions being crafted for your next meeting, understanding that it's probably gonna have to, with their locations, likely gonna have to be phrased in a way, pursuant to land that the village already owns, it may be easier for you to evaluate how you want the questions to be asked on the indoor, outdoor, to actually have questions in front of you. In other words, so that's a long-winded way of saying, don't answer that question right now, wait until you see, because in all likelihood, there's probably gonna be a number of questions that are identified, and then you're gonna have to work through not using all of them, but just using one or two of them.
So today, would we just be approving the idea that you'd craft questions for us that could possibly be on the?
Right, without a site being identified.
Without a site being
Right, if the board is comfortable, now, we sort of asked this before, and believe me, we've been trying to move our way through this, so we could have succeeded with the site, but we just cannot get there yet. But if you say go ahead minus the identifying the site, we will come back to you with a coordinated process in 2 weeks to review a variety of question designs. And at that point, I think you'll be able to then weigh those designs and weigh whether you want to ask a question about design as well.
So is that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Erin.
When we say binding, is it like binding, if it passes, we have to build a pool of some sort, or we just can't go past the amount they voted?
The questions regarding the pool, whether will be non-binding.
Okay.
So now that works both ways. If here, I'm gonna give you an example that actually made it very easy for Mount Horeb. Mount Horeb went through this process on whether or not to buy the Norse Golf Club. They had a very high turnout, and I wanna say like 65% of the people said, yes, do it. Now that's a very high percentage on a financial issue. And so that gave clarity, and it was a one question, and it was very, I mean, they were in I would say, an easier position than the Waunakee may be on the swimming pool. The golf course existed, and you knew exactly where the site was. So it basically was, do you want us to do this for this amount of money? Even though the voters said 65%, the board could have chosen not to acquire the golf club. But, so if it's a positive vote, you can still decide no for various reasons. And if it's a vote that maybe 40% of the people say we want to do it, you would still have the authority to go ahead with it. The levy limit issue, if that question needs to be on the ballot, my belief is that's a binding referendum question, I think.
My question would be if the question for the pool ended up being no, but the levy limit exceeding was yes, which is a binding. But I mean, you don't have to.
Yeah, I think that allows you to then go over that amount. You could still choose not to.
So
yes.
if the pool didn't get built, we wouldn't obviously tax for it.
Yep.
So this is more of a survey of us here asking to do and what do you guys,
Yeah,
I think it's reasonable, right?
because we could see support for the pool, but not at that cost.
And we're not actually, there's no, so I think we all agree it's reasonable to do to word it up a little bit and see what we get, see what works out. I think that's all you need from us, right?
That's helpful direction. That will chart what we're going to do over the course of the next month for you. Sue, do you agree?
Very much so. I don't know if the board is ready to talk about a preference on one proposed facility versus the other. I don't know if the time is right for that or not. Indoor versus indoor-outdoor.
It probably makes more sense to do it in the setting of everybody. I mean, we could probably survey the 5 of us here, but only 4 of us matter, and Joe's there, and it's like, I mean, I don't know if there's value in doing that now when.
I'm
not saying we can't do it, it's just.
I think as an exercise, it may be worth seeing how those questions look and feel in both circumstances. Whether identifying one or the other, or crafting a question that asks one or the other. But I think we need to take some time to craft those for you.
So we could move that to the 2 weeks from now type thing.
I think that'd be reasonable. But it's good direction for us to know that you're comfortable doing so without site certainty.
I think so.
Except not Sam.
What's that?
But not Sam.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we can, ask the questions, we can explore it. I don't have a problem with exploring it.
He's not throwing rocks.
Or keys.
Or he's got no rocks.
Okay, direction enough, Sue? Good?
All right.
We're good, thank you.
We're good? Is that enough?
Yep.
So new business is discuss and take action of ordinance amending section 78(1) of the village code, length of lawn and grasses, there we go, to allow for the exemption for no mow May initiative.
Yeah, and I worked with Brian. We set this, based on the discussion at your last meeting, we sort of teed this right up for you with the exact action required to enable no mow May approach that creates an exemption to enforcing the lawn lengths. Now, I'll let Brian touch on that briefly, but this mirrors action that he assisted the city of Verona with. Was it a year or two?
January of this year.
Oh, this year, okay. So this is prepared for you. I shared it with Bill Frederick, and his team in Public Works are the group that enforces the lawn length. I'll share that occasionally when our own crews see lawns going long, we can initiate an enforcement process. The other option is we receive a complaint from a neighboring owner, and then we carry out enforcement when that happens. In this case, if approved, we would not address lawn length enforcement either by staff or by complaint. That we simply would not enforce that length rule. Brian, let me let you add some context.
Sure, I mean, so if you look at pages 57 and 58 of your packet, so 78.1 or 78-1 is our existing ordinance provision regarding length of lawn and grasses. The language that the village has in its code is similar to many other communities in Dane County. And so the new language would be on page 58, which is F, essentially creating an exemption where we would not enforce the length of lawn and grasses ordinance in the month of May. Now, I think if you adopt this, you also have to understand that doesn't mean we're walking around on June 1st and ticketing people because they haven't mowed their lawns. I mean, there's going to have to be a little grace period to allow people, maybe a week or so, maybe to get that lawn trimmed up. And then, in all likelihood, the village will probably go back to what is a standard practice, which is essentially complaint-based by neighbors, or if there's something really egregious that's noticed by staff. But the ordinance is necessary, because otherwise, if we just adopted a proclamation or a resolution, the village board would be approving action that was inconsistent with the ordinance. So that's the reason for the change in the ordinance to allow this 1 month exception.
Bill, do you see any negatives out of this?
Not right, no.
Okay.
I will tell you, I certainly think that you can adopt this. I have heard in other communities that you will have, and you will have people who've applied this and have not mowed their lawn for a month, and then they've had to retain outside services because their lawn literally did grow so long that the machines that they have at their own house, and some of those people came to the municipalities and expected the municipality to pay that cost. Obviously, the municipality said no. It was your decision to not mow the grass. We, by adopting the ordinance, we're not enforcing it. But if I want to give you that heads up, because there is the possibility that type of phone call may be made to the village. It has happened in other municipalities. The municipalities, politely said, no, that's not a cost that we're going to cover. But just be aware that is one potential impact. One might be one reason that, as the speaker said, maybe mow the front but not the back or something like that. Just as a heads up.
And to be clear, and so the title doesn't confuse anyone. This is not a mandatory requirement.
Correct.
I want to be really clear about that. In fact, you'll still see the village caring for the turf fields where youth sports is beginning to occur. So we will be mowing those field areas. Those are fair things to remind us about.
That was gonna be my question of, I guess my first thought was like, we kind of can't fully participate because we have youth sports, but, do we have any area, I guess, planned to participate, or we could help educate?
Yeah, we have area down off of Woodland Drive, we call Spawn Greenway. And we thought that would be a nice area to participate in this event.
Okay.
And we have a couple other right-of-way areas that we felt we could let go for the month of May. That's out of the way that would be okay with you.
Problems with me?
No problems.
As long as we don't hold it against people if they choose to mow their lawns. They've got that right? They
Yeah, we
don't have to
certainly
go along
wouldn't.
with it.
The village wouldn't.
Just the bees.
I talked to David Hogg about it, who's a bee expert, and he said the flowering plants are more important than grass, so that's what he's more interested in, is the flowering plants. But that's his opinion. He's only got a master's in it.
Yeah. So anybody? Right, we can call it. Any?
Do the recommended motions on page 59, if you're inclined to do that.
I'll move to approve the ordinance amending section 78-1 of the village code on length of lawn and grasses to allow for exemption for the No Mow May initiative.
I'll second.
I'll second.
You can have.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this is, next, discuss and take action on commissioning gift for the Ho-Chunk Nation. Todd?
Yep, thanks, Bill. We have come a really long way in building the relationship between the village, its community, and the Ho-Chunk Nation over the past 2 years. It really has been a special opportunity for us as a village organization to see that fostered relationship, something that we've come to value deeply. Indicated by, also by the village board, passing the proclamation about the land acknowledgement, about the land that we stand on today. So amongst the education that we've done, one thing that I've personally learned is that the giving of gifts is something particularly special to Native nations, and it is to the Ho-Chunk Nation as well. And in recognition for the partnership and their willingness to engage us, provide their staff and leadership dedication to our work together, I'm requesting that the board authorize and commission an artwork piece that we would gift to the Ho-Chunk Nation in recognition of our partnership and work together. We have about $12,000 in our Create Waunakee fund that we've built up over the years, and I'm asking the board to authorize an amount not to exceed $2,500 to commission a local Waunakee artist, Tracy and John Grady. They own Glass Catfish Studio, to commission a piece of work in stained glass to recognizing the launch of a dugout canoe that will be occurring this June. The canoe is being made by students of the Ho-Chunk Nation, and we'd like to celebrate them launching that in Mendota County Park and running through the chain of lakes here. So that's the request and the gift that we'd like to offer the nation.
Question? Has a design been put together yet for this or not?
No, the plan is actually for the Grady's to observe the launch itself and design a piece specifically to commemorate that day and place.
Okay.
So it won't be given at the launch. It's reflective of the launch.
Correct.
I'll move we authorize the village administrator to engage Glass Catfish Studio for creation of stained glass artwork to be given as a gift to the Ho-Chunk Nation of Wisconsin at a cost not to exceed $2,500.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I'm mentoring you now. This is mentoring.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Congrats on your last meeting.
That was great. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it all. Yeah. Welcome, Joe.
We will miss you.
What?
We will miss you.